My name is Trygve Throntfight, and I co-teach, along with Dr. Kyle Ward, the class History 430, Debating American Democracy. Today we're going to do a series of activities that take us from individual reflection through some group sharing and then a class discussion. The whole point of the class is to convey a sense that American democracy has from the beginning been contested. It's also to help students gain skills and dispositions and a sense of themselves as civic agents who can make change, not only through speaking out or protesting, but also through collaborating with people across deep differences.
It's a very, very fun and enjoyable class, but you really have to do a lot of analyzing and critical thinking as well, which can be a yes or no to some people. But all in all, I think it's a class to get to know your classmates, and it's also a class to get to know the past and possibly what the future of your nation could look like.
I took this course mostly because it had the word debate in it and the word democracy. Two words are really open to interpretation.
The people that are in this class, I think, all look forward to coming here because there's an opportunity for you to talk instead of just listening to someone lecture the whole time.
It was really cool to see how the professors interacted with the students. They worked well with each other. They clearly were having a lot of fun in those discussions and really just enjoying the whole experience, which I think that ideally every professor wants to do.
When you're reading your clusters, like how can you relate to this domestically, foreignly, and then like what does this have to do with our entry in World War I altogether? And I think it was really interesting, the contradictions between each other. Some people were like, let's join the war because of economic reasons, and then some people are like, let's not join the war for economic reasons.
I would say I have like less respect for Wilson and this like Wilsonian, as you said, like logic.
That flips and says we can't be neutral anymore, and kind of contradicts from his previous, like before being elected, saying that he wanted to stay neutral.
To declare war, the Senate has to make a vote as well. It's not Wilson, and that's part of the democratic process.
There's the delicate balancing act of like how much does the U.S. involve itself in foreign affairs nowadays? Like Ukraine, for example, like do we increase more sanctions? Do we have boots on the ground? Like what do you do for that?
And I think what makes this course different from other classes, it makes it different in two ways, both its purpose, which is really sort of civic and social rather than just an individual educational goal. Also, the structure of the class is quite different because in order to build those civic muscles, it turns out that the students have to do most of the work of teaching one another rather than the instructors.
The way that the critical thinking prompts and empowers students to engage issues, reflect on them, and give considered opinions, helping students understand that they can be engaged citizens and giving them the confidence by developing these critical thinking skills that they need to do that.
Like it's sort of extremely idealist, and I understand he has this like caveat of the League of Nations, like, well, it might not prevent war, but maybe there's like less chance of war. But I just don't see how that's like ever proven to be true. China is one of the founding members of the UN, and they're actively committing a genocide, and I don't see the UN doing anything about that.
It was interesting you made the connection between Wilson and the United Nations. Do you think it would be worthwhile doing a little bit of reading and research into the actual League of Nations?
I took this course because I actually was recommended this course by another professor. This seems really interesting, and for something that I want to go into, I want to be a lawyer. I feel like this class really will benefit me.
I took it because I'm really interested in American democracy anyways.
There have been some challenges in delivering the course. College faculty are trained to be expert in a particular field. We're all socialized to sort of get up on stage and deliver knowledge to students. And frankly, students are socialized to expect that kind of delivery of knowledge. That's not the point of this class. It's really imperative that the instructor not provide answers to student questions, but instead tell them how they can go about developing those answers on their own.
The challenging aspect is definitely stating what the readings mean to you, because sometimes they're really hard to like understand.
A lot of these documents are motivated by a lot of different factors. You know, there's political and moral and economic things going on.
So just trying to state, well, I thought this reading meant this, but then someone else could probably think it the other way. So just kind of finding that like happy medium and not trying to like get upset with other people when they think like another way than you.
The one reading that I was genuinely like completely shocked by, and more so of like
terms of their argument was the Du Bois article, and how he's stating it's like we're going overseas and we're fighting a war for democracy, but at home our democracy is not even close to being stable because like as a African American, we don't have rights, but then we're fighting for other people's rights, not in our country. Like it just doesn't make sense. Too, he goes, it is awesome seeing people of black, yellow, and white skin sitting at the same panel together, but then he relates it to at home. We can't see that in our own nation.
What has been most surprising is just how good the students are at coming up with really plausible, compelling answers to these big questions.
There were questions that were posed in an interesting way that asked students to really consider what they had read from a number of different perspectives.
There's not this risk that I think some instructors might worry about of students coming to completely wrong conclusions because they're not being fed answers by instructors.
No one in Congress goes to war unless they're young and impressionable, and they usually die. The class is debating democracy. So I think that talking about what Wilson is doing without discussing the fact that he is behaving more, in my opinion, I think a lot of the presidents in history behaving more like kings than like democratically elected civil servants. And he uses his authority in that kind of way.
The Congress of that time was in some ways much more, I guess, elitist, but in other ways not compared to the Congress of this time. It was much more likely for elite politicians at that time to have close family members who actually served in the military and bore costs of war. So that's another empirical claim that we would just want to test. But again, this isn't to say that the claims you're made are wrong. It's just I'm not sure from this set of sources we can substantiate them. They come to a whole range of conclusions, many of them very different from one another, but none of which you can't find in published academic works or textbooks endorsed by respectable scholars on various sides of any given historical issue.
I can involve myself in super intellectual conversations because I learned about it and I'm talking about it. I use a lot of those statements and I share them with my families or other conversations I have outside the class.
It taught me how to listen. I come into any situation, including this class, with my own preconceived notions and my own ideas and my own values, trying to put those to the side, even for a couple of minutes, to embrace someone else's perspective. It's really, really hard.
Having good faith conversations where the goal isn't necessarily to win an argument, but to learn something new. We all have more in common than we don't. And so how do we learn how to listen to each other to have a better outcome?
This course in general really enlightens like an American citizen on what a broad definition of what that could be. But I think it brings thought to a lot of like younger people that you have a voice no matter what. So like you have like that confidence to talk about it, to say the stuff that you want to say. In other classes, I was too scared to say what I felt, but in this class, I feel comfortable doing it. And I feel like it's helped me speak out in like other settings as well.